You know, I was just about to say it's about time I talk now, isn't it? But then you're here. Hello, Commodore. Tell you what. Well, turn off the eye. You know what I really found? Turning off the eye, I can relax way more on stream and just yap about things. I don't feel like I'm under any kind of stress or duress to do things. But hello, Commodore. I'd love to see you as always, my friend. We're going to be doing a reading stream today. I'm going to be turning off sound alerts when that does happen, but for now they're okay, so it's fine. But yeah, we're going to be reading the Odyssey today, and I'm very excited because, hang on, could you hear that? That's my copy of the Odyssey. This is several years old now. I don't want to say how old it is because it will date me, but man, this is from my student days basically, and it's endearing to go back through this all and see all the points that I've highlighted and all the notes that I've made. It's very, very interesting to go back through, and it's a great story as well. I found a new thing to talk about. There's a new pickup truck that's slated for 2027. It's a $20,000 and electric. Actually, that reminds me. So, speaking of like weird electric vehicles, I've been really interested in looking into like, how do I put this? Bikes with roofs. Like there's I think it's called like a mono racer. They're called. They're like roofed motorbikes. They're very, very interesting. I always thinking, man, it'd be really cool if Sideways from Transformers turned into one of those velomobile. Wait, is that the name of the pickup truck or is that the name of the bike? But yeah, we're gonna be reading the Odyssey today, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Just because, yeah, it's, oh my god, the truck is called the Blank Slate. Wait, why is it called that? It's like it's reinventing the wheel, is it? Because it's basic AF. Fair. It's like a new 80s pickup. What's that car called? Is the Tesla van, which is all very angular, and it's really odd because it means it can lead to some really weird inconsistencies in how they're designed. No infotainment, no power windows. As in like electric windows, you mean? The Cybertruck, that's the one. Yeah. I know there can be like a lot of inconsistencies in their build just because of the way they're made and how they're using a lot of angles and not like rounded shapes. But yeah. So, what's the purpose of this new pickup truck then? Except for just to be a new pickup truck. You were non-human powered. Wait, what? Commodore, I'm very confused. Not gonna lie, I don't know what's going on. But yeah, no, I've been really interested in like bikes with like roofs, and yeah, the mono race is one of the ones I've seen. I always think, yeah, I was talking about bikes, but no, like, yeah, I was talking about bikes. Yeah. So the mono race is one. It's like it looks like a cool futuristic bike. It's very, very cool looking. I think it is, at least. Some people are thinking it probably looks tacky, but I like it. And I think, man, what if Sideways from Transformers was in a film and he turned into a mono racer? That would be really sick. Plus, it means you could finally have a bike transformer which isn't a fucking midget. I kind of realized that my last some time. Okay, I was listening to ODYSSEY. I'm doing this stream today because of Epic the Musical, because I've been watching that. I'm not finished it, actually. I'm in the final parts of it, I think. And like, what is it? Yeah, there's a song called "Wouldn't You Like," and it's by the god Hermes sings it. And here's a laugh, and like, damn, I think I kind of laugh like that by accident a lot of the time. Like that, and I'm like, wait, is that just my normal laugh? I've been made fun of for my laugh in the past. Someone once said someone once said this, and it was meant to be like a compliment. I didn't take it badly at all. They said I sound like a hyena when I laugh, and I'm like, you know what? That's fair. Hyenas are pretty cool. And yeah, I like hyenas. You know, hyenas have like for a long time people thought they're a hermaphroditic species, but not so. In fact, they are split into a male and female. However, the female hyenas have so much testosterone pumped into their bodies that they have a pseudo penis, if you will. The pseudo penis, which scientists believe they have, was actually an enlarged clitoris, which also serves as a birth canal for when giving birth, meaning that it is an extremely painful process. So yeah, the more you know. Pickup sucks. They're land yachts with 12 miles to the gallon and bring... I don't know how much a gallon is. With a big crew cab and new pickups pretty much... the new red Corvette where middle-aged men show how macho they are. I see. So it's a status thing, yeah. I don't know. I can't drive. I think cars should be functional before status symbols. Yeah, I don't know. It seems very, very silly to me. A pseudo-penis. Yeah, that's what they refer to it as that. The clitoris is because it's becoming an enlarged pseudo-penis. It's approximately 4 liters. Oh, I see. Okay, I know how much 4 liters is. Well, not off the top of my head, but I know how much 1 liter is, so I can imagine how much 4 liters are. Oh, actually, speaking of measurements, I made a cake today. I made a cheesecake, a Basque cheesecake. I've done it in the past, but it's been a long time since I did one. So I tried this new recipe I found, and it's looking pretty good so far, though it needs a lot of time to set, a lot of time to wait around and cool down properly. So yeah, I'm going to turn the volume down from my end, because it's a bit loud for me. Commodore, is it summer now? It's June. Just about. Almost June. Is it summer now? Because, man, it's getting sunny days now. I can finally go... I bought some new clothes the other week for going out in the summertime. I was like, oh, I need some new summer clothes. Something light. Something which won't make me really hot. And I bought like, wow, these look really nice. And I bought them. I'm really excited to go out in these. And then it was raining all week. And I'm like, okay, great stuff. I'm not going to wear that new clothes when it's raining all week and it's not even the weather. It's not cold enough to go out and it's not warm enough to go out in them when it's cold and wet and like lovely. Love that stuff. It's been sunny all the time and as soon as I get new stuff, it comes out raining. Love that stuff. Sunny old England, as they say. Sunny old England. It's feeling like summer, have aircon. So, man, air conditioning is not really... Okay, you can get air conditioning over here. It's not like a prerequisite, right? Houses here are built for heat retention, and it can get very warm indoors, and we don't really have aircon built in because it's not mandatory in most places. And when you can get it, it is prohibitively expensive. I once saw someone, it was the most American comment I'd ever seen, or one of the most, but it's like, just go down to your local Walmart or whatever and buy an aircon. Some person on Twitter was complaining about how it was really hot in England or something like that. Just go down to your local Walmart and spend $200 on some aircon and get it. And like, number one, going down and spending $200, that's a lot of money. I don't think you just do that, right? That's something you need to actually think about. Do I actually need this? I think most people would say just going down and spending $200 on something is a bit frivolous, honestly. Second, that's not a thing you can do here. You can't go to a shop, a big home improvement shop, and buy air conditioning. That's not how it works. You could probably buy a singular air conditioner, but it'd be like a giant fan, essentially. I'd rather have a heat pump. I see. I mean, we have a lot of... Central heating's always like a standard here, but air conditioning is not. Like, getting built-in air conditioning is not a thing here. Yeah, again, you're best off just getting a big fan. I do have a big fan, actually. It's right behind me, but it's not been turned on for a while because it's not been hot enough for it. I also don't want to turn it on in streams because the fan will be caught on the microphone. More than likely, at the very least. If not, there'll be a constant ringing noise or humming noise to indicate that it's there. But yeah, you don't really get that as a thing over here, which is I think it's a culture shock for a lot of Americans that the rest of the world doesn't use air conditioning as a standard. Granted, I'm sure there's some people in America who think that you don't need air conditioning as a standard, probably who live in the north and such, but I'm sure for many who live in the hotter places in like the east and south coast, I guess the south does not have a coast, it's just the south. There's the south and the east coast. or West Coast even. I get those places where it's much hotter generally. I'm sure they would argue that you do need air conditioning. Places maybe up north and maybe towards the East Coast, maybe you don't need as much. I don't know enough about American geography or climate to really specify, to really say for certain. We use even on our puny 110-volt system. Oh, I see. I don't know what the standard voltage is for the UK. I know everyone's like, why do you have a weird one? Weird 3-point plug. The third prong on our plugs is meant to be it's meant to be like an added safety measure, as it were. It's like a grounding rod, essentially. If I remember correctly, 220 volts is UK. Oh, I see. I didn't know that. Cool. But yeah, we have like a 3-prong system, which is meant to be help with grounding it. Does that actually work? I actually don't know. But they're the only plugs we have available. So, you know what? You go for it. Plugs are super Lego. I can see it. Oh, hang on just a moment. Sorry, just double checking something. Plugs are super Lego. Indeed they are. Yes. Like, I never had to like buy additional like plug adapters, and now I've got 2 of them, one for Japan and one for Denmark. Not Denmark. Not Belgium. Oh my god, where's Amsterdam? The Netherlands. Thank god damn. I'd say Belgium. They'd have my head if I said it was Belgium. Actually, no, they wouldn't have my head. If they were French and I said they were Belgian, they'd have my head. Because the French get very annoyed if you mistake Belgian, France. It's probably like if like you mistake the Portuguese with the Spanish, you know? You just don't do that. You know there's like a tiny country in between, like Italy and Spain? It's called Andorra. It's on like the very border between them. And it is on the border. It's absolutely tiny. You wouldn't be able to see it on most maps. But it's this tiny country called Andorra. Yeah, and it exists between Spain and Italy. And yeah, you have like... I'm pretty sure they speak both Spanish and Italian there, though I think Spanish is the more prominent one. Sometimes we have tiny countries like that. I'm not sure where they've come from. Like Gibraltar, I know is tiny. And I mean, like, obviously if you have an island nation, yes, that will be tiny. But this isn't an island nation. This is on a main landmass. I'm surprised no one's taken it over. Granted, it's not causing any issues, whatever. But yeah, you could also argue that Vatican City exists, but well, Vatican City is within Italy. It's like within Italy, and though it is treated as its own power, it serves too much of a religious prominence to ever be overthrown. So yeah, I don't know why Andorra exists, but I think it's pretty neat that it does exist, you know? Just this little guy standing between giants. I love that idea. That's such a great concept. Speaking of giants, it announced that Titamon was going to be in the new Digimon game, and I'm looking forward to it. Titamon's very cool. He's a very big guy, as you can imagine. Like, Digimon, I mentioned this before, Digimon size scaling is very weird to me. They're never consistent with their sizes. Sometimes the Digimon is massive, sometimes it's very small. Sometimes, that can just depend on, like, artist interpretations, I guess. But, I kind of wish Digimon was just more, I don't know. There was more of a Bible on how tall Digimon should be. Right, like, Greymon should not be small. Greymon's a big dinosaur. He should be big. But, yeah, I think as well that... Wait, was it? No, I was going to say... Oh, I can't remember now. No, anyway. Yeah, Digimon are weird because some of them are really big, some of them are really small. Wait, whoa, it's a big wallet. It's a big vortex, Commodore. Our electrical system doesn't have cables with fuses, and a lot of times people would have cheap-ass thin gauge that looks thick because the shielding is thick, and the vendors are cheap and out on copper and sell to consumers and cause house fires. And the only reason why Americans don't use extension cords because they know extending too much causes fires, and new houses occur to have a lot of outlets. So that's like a thing is like the whole like using extensions. It's like general like fire safety though at home, right? You don't like make a string of extension cords. because that can cause problems. Like, you don't use extensions, then cause a further extension. That's not good. You just buy a longer one. It's the safer option in the end of the day. Hey, so I remember hearing this, like, you know, like you do like fire safety at school, and they say, oh, make sure to stay low to the ground to like avoid rising smoke from heat. I heard that is bullshit now. Has that been disproven? As like, yeah, that won't actually help you. Keeping low to the ground won't do anything much for you. People that do that get. Well, you know what? Sometimes some people just aren't meant for being alive. You know? You ever think about that? I think about this quite a lot, and not in like a joking way, like, you know, they're too stupid. I mean, some people I don't think are just fit for life. And I don't mean that in like a mean way, or in a funny way. I mean like a dead serious way, that like, sometimes people just are not cut out for the pressures of life, for being alive. People are just such messes that they just don't, they probably won't make it. I think everyone can feel like that at some time. I certainly felt like that a lot. Like, I'm just like, man, I'm really not cut out for being alive. But, you know, I guess I'm still here, so I guess something's happening. I'm not fit and trying to get fit. That's a good idea. Well, I hope you get there, comrade. Maybe you'll never will get there, but I hope you do. And I don't mean that in like a disheartening way. I mean that like, we're all just trying to struggle, aren't we? Life is a struggle, and all we can do is carry on through it all. I hope you live a very long life, though, Commodore. I really hope you do. I hope you have a very healthy, happy life, and that you get what you want from the world. Because there's a lot from it to take. There's also a lot to give. Make sure to give back as well. Sometimes your very presence alone can give back to people. Isn't that wild? The very fact that your presence, someone's presence, could give someone else so much joy and meaning in life. I got wisdom, I seek more, and I learned from the models of my life. I got wisdom, I seek more, and I learned from the models in my life of what not to do. Very good. You know, it reminds me of a story. I have a friend who's from China, right? And he was telling me he had a friend. I can't remember, because he's been around the world quite a bit and studying places. I can't remember if this was while he was studying in Australia, or this when he was back in China. I can't remember now what he said. It's been a while since he said the story. But he remembered, he was talking about this girl he knew, and he was friends with her, and she didn't go out at all. And like, I was so, and she was like, yeah, she was like 27 or 28, and she hadn't had a boyfriend or anything like that. And because we're talking about, I think we've gotten talking about like relationships with her, and he was talking about he mentioned that she was like 27 or 28 and never had a boyfriend, and people had asked her out, and she said, oh no, I'm not interested. And he's like, okay, so do you like girls? She said, oh no, I don't. And apparently girls had asked her out, and she said I wasn't interested. But what happened was that she just so is there maybe a reason why you've not gone out with anyone? He wasn't trying to be rude or anything. He was just like curious about it. She said it's easier to know what you want in it's easier to know what you don't want in a person than what you want in a person. That's easier to know. And no, you'll know what you want in a person when you meet them, right? You'll know what you want in a person when you meet them. It's very easy to tell. I think a lot of people can intuitively tell if someone they know they will get along with. Not all the time. Sometimes you might become friends with someone who you never expected to become friends with. It's happened to me. But also, you can tell very early on if you're going to be good friends with someone, right? And it's much easier to know what you don't want in a person than what you do want. And unfortunately, you kind of have to experience that. And of course, you say, oh, I want someone who's nice. Like, yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. What does it mean to be nice? What does it mean for you to be nice? What does it mean for someone to be nice to you? What does that mean? Because being nice can be anything. You might think it's nice if someone holds the door open for you. Someone might say, oh, it's just it was just a politeness. It was a nicety, but it's just politeness. It doesn't mean anything. Some people might take that very far, though. For the past 20 years, we didn't notice that cars became more luxurious beyond the affordability of mere mortals, because mere mortals would just buy used cars. But since COVID's aftermath, where you use a shit boxes like 33. Also, not to mention that the US is like terrible for like civilian infrastructure as well. So you're either forced to buy a ludicrously priced car or get fucked, I guess, aren't you? Being kind, you know what I mean. Being nice and kind are kind of part and parcel. Though I guess you can be kind without being nice. You can have you could be kind to being kindness could come off as mean, I guess. You may be mean to someone to give them a greater kindness later down the road, you know. Rejection, you said fear of rejection. Rejecting someone in itself could be a kindness, you know. Maybe you're at a point where, hey, if this person goes out with me, they'll be miserable, so I will reject them, which isn't very nice, but it may be kind. But you don't know that. The person on the other end won't know that. Yeah, it's very easy to say to notice what you don't want rather than what you want. People that are nice because they want something, and if you are... I think we taught this before, Commodore. So, I think there can be some kind of certain transactional things which happen in relations. And it's not intentional. It's not the way I necessarily look at the world. I think certain things can be transactional, where like someone does a good turn by you and you do a good turn by them, right? You do a good turn, good in return. And it's not necessarily a transactional way of living, but I think there are certain aspects of life which can be transactional. Though, yeah, if someone is being just nice, just to get something, I don't think that's very, very honest. I feel like a lot of people do that to climb in a workplace, I guess. Not just in a working environment. You know, I do acting and such, and I feel like there can be a lot of niceties in that, especially in like the professional scene where you need to be nice to the people in charge. But like, I don't know, in my experience as well, that I think a lot of people do want you to be good at what you do and be earnest about it. I don't know, maybe that's just me. I prefer an invitational relationship. Don't keep score. That's fair. What do I prefer? I don't know, honestly. All my friends are dead and gone, so I guess it doesn't really matter what I think, does it? Oh well. I think it's one of those things that you ever think about, like, when people say, how do I make friends, or how do I talk to girls? And it's like, well, it's not about that. It's about how do you meet people? How do you meet people, and how do you talk to people, right? Hello, I am Lucky VR. Thank you very much. I'm so lucky, because this is your first time following. You understand what I mean. You gotta blow in the horn. The enemy of my enemy is my friend is incomplete. It should have, for now, appended at the end. It is interesting to see how many sayings throughout history have been uncompleted. Is you actually reading the Odyssey? I am, Lucky. We're going to be starting in a little while. But I will be reading the Odyssey. I have my old copy right here. Could you hear the pages turning there? I hope you could hear the pages turning. This is an old copy I have from years ago. It's very worn, but it's very worn in a loved way. And I actually use this for studying, so I have a bunch of highlights and old notes throughout my student days in this. And it's very, very fun to go back and look through it all and see all the points and everything. It's also been very interesting to like go through Epic Musical. Actually, I've not finished the last set of the final bit of it yet. I just got finished God Games on it because I've not finished all. It just got me in the mood to read it. Like, But yeah, it's fun to see what changed and what didn't change from Homer's version. Obviously, there's a lot of change which could happen. This is a story 3,000 years old, so 3,000 plus years old even, with many, many variants. Have you peeked at your old notes with your current wisdom? A few of them, yes. Obviously, I've not gone through the whole book because it's quite lengthy. How long is this? This is the... I'm going to read the Penguin Classics version, by the way. It's a translation... I'm sorry, I forget his name now. What's the translation? E.V. Ryu? I can't... R-I-E-U. So, I can't pronounce his name, but that's the translation I'm reading from. This is like... It's over 300 pages, so it's quite long, quite lengthy. I read it freshman year. Maybe you could play the musical after each chapter to compare. I think it would take a long time to do, but actually maybe we could do. The thing is, you say that, but also the ordering is very different. The Odyssey starts medias res, right, in the middle of the action. After, you know, the poet voice, you can just ascribe to Homer, basically, kind of calls upon the muses. We'll read it when we get there, but he asks them to, hey, please give me your inspiration, start the story from wherever you see fit. And it starts in the middle of it, where... So we can... I would say we can spoil this. This story is like 3,000 years old. We can spoil this. I think it's very fun, right? The first, like, 3 or so books of the Odyssey are all about, like, essentially Telemachus and like going around, like essentially in his what a teacher of mine described as he was a learner hero, right? He's this hero. He's a guy. He's not a bad guy. He's a very good guy, but he's not like a hero, right? He's got and he's got this legacy to live up to where he knows that oh yeah, Odysseus, he's great, and he doesn't have the knowledge to live up to that. And the first like 3 or so books of it are all about warrior poet. Yeah. I kind of like the idea of a full-on warrior poet, though. That's cool, like using their words to fight. But it's him going around Greece essentially and meeting all these people who knew Odysseus, and then being like, "Oh my God, you're Odysseus' son! Oh my God, come in! Listen, any friend of Odysseus is a friend of mine. Servants, prepare a feast. Listen, let me tell you, your dad. Oh my God, what a legend! His father and slay these yeah, no, he's like." It's fun. It's like him going around learning. Like, oh wow, was he really this great of a man? And everyone who knew him, was thinking, oh yes, of course. And like, I remember there's a bit Helen of Troy, who famously she got the reason why the whole Trojan War started. She was taken away from Menelaus, who was her husband. She was betrothed to, taken by Paris of Troy, and she eventually got taken back. She mentions in a story that Odysseus came to them in disguise, and with her supernatural godly sixth sense, she kind of saw through his disguise, oh, that's Odysseus, and no one else could see it, but that's because she's divine. With a green eye, I'm assuming you're of Celtic ancestry, and assuming you heard of the phrase, don't trust a warrior who can't dance. You mean Messiah? So I am of Irish descent, actually. Most of my family is from Northern Ireland, but I used to know the town where a lot of them were, at least on my father's side of the family, where a lot of them were born. I'm mostly Irish blood though, a bit of English blood though as well, like half and half. But yeah, my cousin lives in Ireland. So a few years ago, on this cycle of life, my grandmother died, and unfortunately this was in COVID times. So the original plan was that we were going to go to Ireland and I guess have a wake. I guess the wake is where you have a big party and talk about stories and stuff. That was the original idea. We're gonna go to Ireland and spread her and my granddad's ashes over there. What was the town where they lived? I can't remember what it was now. But unfortunately, it didn't happen because it was in COVID time, and they'd found different plans since then in their will, I guess. So, but yeah, But what is it now? Yeah, it's like I didn't know about the saying. But there's a lot of Irish lore which I like, stories from Ireland, and like the mythologies and myths spread from there, which I wish to know more about. One of my favorite actually is the weapon Gaibulg. Sometimes Gay Bulge. The Guy Bulg or Bulg. No one's the pronunciation can be different. It's Gaelic. It's a magical throwing spear used by the hero Cuchulainn, who when it pierces you, it grows thorns from the spot that it pierces and rips these thorn lines all throughout your body. It just destroys you from the inside out. It's very cool. I'm all Anglo-Saxon, Scandinavian, Mediterranean. That is all over the place. God damn. God damn, someone got busy. Ugh. But what was I going to say? Yeah, so next to Helen of Troy was one of the only people he could see through Odysseus' disguise when he dressed. He's very good at making disguises for himself. Helen of Troy could do that because she is a daughter of Zeus, and it brings up an interesting point where if you're a child, okay, a lot of people, thanks to the stories like Hercules or Heracles being popularized, like, oh yeah, you get like super strength and stuff if you're the child of a god. No, he didn't get that because Heracles did not get his famous strength from being a child of Zeus. He got that from like drinking magic breast milk. So he watched an episode of Seikon no Quasar. If you don't know that show, don't worry about it. Okay, Lucky. Can I call you Lucky? Can I call you Lucky? Is that okay? Yes and no. Keep in mind, this is like a religion, right? But not like an organized one. So you think of like religion today, a lot of people consider it to be organized. Like, what are the biggest religions in the world? Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism. A lot of these are organized in some way and have some kind of, I guess, official canon in the form of written text. This wasn't the case for Greeks, and by extension the Romans, when they later adopted these myths after, or I guess they kind of would have already had. Anyway, doesn't matter. We're getting to the semantics of it too much. We're going into the weeds. Anyway, in some myths, yes, but it can heavily depend on the culture of the time and who was telling the story. It's very important to keep in mind that to describe anything as Greek mythology or Greek culture is a bit disingenuous, simply because Greece, like many or most countries at the time, was essentially an assortment of city-states, each with their own different ideologies and beliefs and such like that. And obviously there were shared beliefs throughout them all, but you know, like one of the classic examples, the most classic example, is the differences between Athens and Sparta, which had very different mentalities in how to run how to run a country, or how to run a land, essentially. So yeah, there are some stories where he is, some where he isn't, and ultimately, trying to plot a family tree for deities, for the deities, as it were, is a fool's errand, ultimately. Though it's certainly fun to try. Achilles was dipped in water. Yeah, he was. It was the nymph. I can't remember her name now. It was a nymph who was his mum. Oh, well, this brings it to the point I was going to make originally. So, if you were the child of a god, that doesn't make you superpowered, right? So, again, like, Heracles did not get his strength from being the child of Zeus. He got that from drinking the breast milk of Hera by accident. In some versions, at least, but it's never because he was the child of Zeus, realistically. Most of the time, it's not. What it did do, it gave you like a higher, it gave you like better qualities than the average man. Like, one of the sons of Poseidon, I can't remember what his name was now. Something beginning with a P. Anyway, he was like very good at horseback riding because he was the son of Poseidon. You know, the horse represents Poseidon, and it's like he's very good at equestrianism, and that's his superpower. He's got super horse riding powers. Okay, that's fucking great power to have. Perseus, yes, probably yes. It was probably Perseus who I'm thinking of. What was it? Yeah. Helen of Troy is a similar thing here, where she was the daughter of Zeus, so she had this like kind of additional sixth sense, or is like superhuman insight. Like, oh, I can see through this disguise. I can recognize this is Odysseus, but no one else could have done that. What is important as well, though, is that only gods, only men passed on their godly powers. If you were a goddess, a woman, you didn't. Which is why Achilles' mother, who was a nymph, did not pass on any kind of supernatural abilities to her son. So she did. Was it the Acheron? I want to say it was some river, one of the many magical rivers in Greek mythology. She dipped him in that, and obviously, you know, held him by the ankles, so that was why he couldn't be harmed except for on his ankles. And they were termed Achilles' heel, where he's eventually shot ankles heel, whatever. He eventually gets shot in the heel by by Paris of Troy with a poison arrow, which the wound doesn't kill him, right? Because like if you get shot in the heel, it's gonna fucking hurt, but it's not gonna kill you. The poison killed him. Athens is overrepresented. Greece has many. Athens. It was, yeah. There's many. Nerd anime Pokemon are excellent. Good to hear. We all love that here. We know very little about Iona. Yeah, actually, you're right. I'm trying to think now. One of the only major times in Greek history. This is history. Not just mythology. This is history. Greek history, where really Greece kind of came together, was when the Persian Empire invaded, and it's kind of like, well, this isn't just for the sake of one city-state or one nation. This is the sake for all of Greece. We must unite. And eventually, you know, they fended off the Persian Empire. This would eventually lead into, I believe it was the two Peloponnesian. I think not a couple of them actually. I can't remember. There's the Peloponnesian Wars, though, which were kind of caused due to an imbalance of power caused by this initial joining together of Greece in a united front against Persia. Also in the Persian front is where we get the propaganda tale of the 300 Spartans who faced off against ignored under the leader of the home guard, essentially the royal guard, essentially ignored the orders of the Spartan theocracy, I guess it would be, yeah, and went to fight the Persian Empire. They all died, but they bought enough time and for everyone else to prepare. And obviously, there's, you know, sprinkled with grain of massive salt if that actually happened or not. Again, it was ultimately a propaganda tale. To quote what's it called? Not Cinema Sins. The other one's like 300, a movie based on a graphic novel, based on an older movie, based on ancient Greek propaganda, based on a true story. I mean, children grow up to be hot. Well, I'm sure most gods, the exception being like Hephaestus, who is generally, you know, he's almost always described as kind of unattractive and unappealing. He's got a hunchback. He's very much like this figure of like unattractiveness, but who makes up for this with extreme intellect and skill. There's actually a very fun story about Hephaestus in the Odyssey. We'll probably get to that at some point, but it's a very fun story. It's one of my favorite stories about Hephaestus, where he kind of basically like gets one up on Aphrodite because she's a cheating bitch. Because of the goddess. I don't believe Calypso was necessarily a goddess of anything, if I remember correctly. She wasn't like a figure who was worshipped, right? There were lots of divinities, the Deus, who weren't necessarily worshipped, but they were divine. I mean, the nymphs were all like... Nymphs often represented rivers and such, but they weren't necessarily worshipped. They could be called upon, perhaps, but they weren't necessarily worshipped. Maybe some of them were. And, you know, that could be... I mean, there were lots of... she's technically a goddess. You're correct. You are correct on that. I guess it's not necessarily you had to be worshipped for. Granted, lots of the deities just kind of existed. Think of like, oh, Hecate, right? Nowadays, I think Hecate. If you were to worship a god like Hecate in like a modern Christianized society, which is what most of Europe and America is. Even no, I say that obviously not everyone is even religious, but I say that it's a society which has been formed on roots of Christianity, essentially. If you look at it like that. The idea of worshipping a being like Hecate, a being of like witchcraft, is heretical. It's devilish. But she was important. She was often worshipped. I've looked into this. She was mainly used like a god of like pathways and passings and stuff. There've been reports of like talismans and such put over like gate openings and crossings and stuff, with the symbol of Hecate engraved on them, and it's like essentially a symbol or a hope of good passage, right? So if you're a traveler who is having to travel a long way between cities, maybe you'd carry a talisman of Hecate with you, but that's just one example. But yeah, as to whether Calypso was even worshipped, I couldn't tell you for certain. I imagine some people would have done. Maybe she's just the goddess of this one island that she lives on. But also, you know, to say it, oftentimes nowadays we often prescribe the Greek gods to one thing, which is, again, a bit disingenuous, or at least very uninformed, because many of the deities kind of overlapped in a lot of ways. I think a lot of people, when they first hear Athena, or Athene is another translation, the translation I'm using actually translates it as Athene. A lot of people ascribe that to the goddess of wisdom, but like, lesser known, but like, which has seen it had a resurgence in popularity. She's also a war goddess, right? And one which was very, very important to the people of Greece at the time, handicraft goddess. She's a goddess for handicraft, for like weaving and stuff like that, and other handmade stuff. If anything, if you can see like Hephaestus like masculine craft, and like he's a god of smithing and forgery and all that, you could see. Athena potentially is like feminine crafts, you know. So again, like weaving and such. She's a minor nature goddess and seen if who rules the mysterious land of Ogygia. Ogygia. I'm gonna. By the way, I will pronounce some things wrong in this. So I do apologize in advance. But yeah, exactly. So many sea nymphs probably weren't worshipped directly. They were often like symbolic of like bodies of water or rivers and things like that, and they could technically be prayed to, yes, but they weren't like one of the ones you'd actually I guess often commonly prayed to. It's nice that we can read the Herculaneum scrolls. I wish I could jump into an Indiana Jones movie and have indie fanboy about telling him about where I came from. We can read it. You mean the charcoal? Yes, we use laser scanners and electronic brains, and they say Pluto's last hours are dying of a fever. You really thought that this seems like it was a deep-rooted thing. This seems like it was like not a spur-of-the-moment thought, Commodore. This seems like you've had these kind of thoughts bubbling for a long time, and you just had to burst them out in my chat. No, it's okay, Lucky. It's fine. Like, seek knowledge, Lucky. Seek knowledge. Knowledge is great. Aspire to intelligence. You know, it's great to be able to learn about things, right? I mean, one of the things I want to do here is be able to talk about the potential history of, like, there's a point later on which won't happen for a while because we don't get to Polyphemus for quite some time in the writings of Homer, but it talks about the wine in Epic the Musical. I guess we'll talk about this at a later point, at a later date when we get there. But in Epic the Musical, it talks about how Polyphemus gets drugged because Odysseus laces his wine with lotus fruit. In the original, this is like this seems like something which is very, very obviously done to make it easy to understand in like a musical context, right? Because the wine he gives Polyphemus was like a gift from this king, and it's a super strong wine, and like it goes back into like all like roots of how like Greek winemaking was done, and how in the olden days, the Cyclops, in the olden days, and by again, this is like 3,000-4,000 years ago. Greek wine would have been extremely strong, and you needed to water it down if you wanted it to be at all palatable, or at least drink it without getting blackout drunk within like a few moments, because it was very strong the way it was brewed. And yeah, essentially in Homer's version, they give him the wine and it's just undiluted, and he drinks it and it's like, oh, this shit's good, and then he passes out because he's fucking drank this undiluted wine. I appreciate Epic's version of it because it makes it's far more sensible to just say, hey, to spend 2 lines saying, hey, I drugged his wine, instead of being like, and now we shall take a short diatribe into explaining the semantics of ancient Greek winemaking. Part 1. The grapes. You get what I mean, though? Just saying, yeah, we drugged it. Like, cool, that makes sense. It makes sense in a story context. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. It's one of those like artistic things, or what's it called? Artistic lights, and I can very much appreciate that. And yeah, there's also a lot of stories in here. There's a lot of like smaller things which they do. Like I mentioned, what are they called? There's a cannibal tribe that they meet, and it's just kind of, they met a cannibal tribe and they survived. It's like a very, very brief moment in the story. It's not worth talking about in terms of like a big epic musical, right? No pun intended there, or maybe pun intended. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff like what are they called? The apothecane? No. What are they called? The cannibal tribe? Because I remember that because they're also mentioned in Shakespeare's Othello. What's it called? I'm thinking of like the people with bodies in their torsos, but that's not that. That's from another thing. That's from an English writer. What are they called? Anthropophagi. Yes, that's it. Yeah, the anthropophagi. And it's like they're just like a cannibal tribe, right? And it's like, okay, who cares? Even Homer himself, when writing these things, did not spend that much time on them. It's just like one very short thing in a series of big things. But you know, Epic hits the major points, the major notes that everyone talks about. The reason why I mentioned the Othello there is because in Othello, I believe it's Act 2. They mentioned it in Othello. I can't remember is it Act 2? Othello has this wonderful speech all about explaining his life story, his history, and he mentions how he ran into the anthropophagi and escaped them. And this is probably more Shakespeare just trying to show, oh, look how storied and worldly traveled and courageous Othello is. And it's also probably a bit of Shakespeare trying to be like, look how much I know about the anthropophagi and they're from Greek mythology. Oh, aren't I smart? Ooh. You get what I'm saying? That sounded like Tigger. What do you wonder if I think about Tiggers? That I am the only one. Yeah. I like that the voice, for the Disney version, the voice of Tigger also does the voice for Winnie the Pooh. I wonder if I think about Tigger. Pooh. Oh, Piglet. No, I can get the Tigger voice right. I can't do the Piglet voice right, though. What a shame. The Piglet voice, the Pooh Bear voice, right? Anthro-human. What's the other half? Anthropophagi. Probably human. Probably eater. You're probably right. You're probably correct on that. Yeah. Lucky, look that up. Lucky, get on it. I want picture Spider-Man on my desk now. Oh, I just knocked my tracking. Oh dear. Hang on a second, folks. Let's change that. Hup. Oh no. Oh dear. Oh me, oh my. Ah, I see what's happened now. You see, this is what happens when I mess around too much. Ah. Okay. There we go. I think we're back, lads. We still have another few minutes where we can start reading. Oh, maybe... Actually, what do you say, folks? Do you want to start reading that? Jim Cummings sounds like a porn name, and he does look like an 80s porn star, too. I wish I could have disagreed on that sentence, but upon seeing the man's face in interviews, I kind of get it. I do get it. I do get it. It's a shame. He's a very talented actor, though. Very talented. Yeah, I'm very excited to read the... But yeah, I've been loving Epic the Musical. Commodore, have you heard any of it? It's very good. I highly recommend it. Wait, is it royalty free? Am I like able to play it on stream without getting like banned or anything? I guess it maybe the stream was muted, but never heard it. Oh, it's really good. Again, I've not actually finished it yet. I'm still in the process of it, so you can call me a fake fan if you want, but also I'll fucking kill you. I won't. I mean, well, it depends on the mood. You ever just like feel like, man, maybe I shouldn't actually say that. Oh yeah, you get me done for inciting violence on stream, and I'd never do such a thing. But I'm just saying, man, sometimes I really wish I had a brick I would throw it at people. But yeah, no, it's very, very good. Maybe we can just like play the first song of it just to set the theme, just set the mood, as it were. Let's go. By the way, this BGM is called Lemonade, by the way. It's very cute. It's by Sari BGM. Let's put the first song on. Let me know if it's too quiet for you.
Alright, my brothers, listen closely. Tonight we make the Trojans pay. 10 years of war, they killed us slowly. But now we'll be the ones who slay. Think of your wives and your children. Your families wonder where you've been. They're growing old and yet you're still here. Do what I say and you'll see them again.
Yes, sir.
Diomedes will lead the charge. Agamemnon will flank the guards. Menelaus will let our mates through the gates to take the whole city at large. Teucer will shoot any outpost attacking. Little Ajax will stay back. Nestor, secure Helen and protect her. Neo, avenge your father, kill the brothers of Hector. Yes, sir. Find that inner strength now. Use that well of pride.
It's very warrior themed.
Ask yourself inside what you live for, what you try for, what you wish for, what you fight for. What do you live for? What do you try for? What do you wish for? What do you fight for? Penelope, Penelope, and Telemachus. I fight for us. I fight for us. What do you live for?
Vinland Saga.
Penelope, what do you try for?
I can see it.
Telemachus, what do you wish for? I'm on my way. What do you fight for?
Oh, hang on. Just one moment, sorry. I'll just leave you that. 1 second.
Who was that?
A vision of what is to come cannot be outrun, can only be dealt with right here and now.
Tell me how.
I don't think you're
Sorry about that.
ready. A mission to kill someone's son, a foe who won't run, unlike anyone you have faced before.
Say
No more.
I know that I'm ready.
I don't think you're ready.
It's just an infant. It's just a boy.
A runestone. Cool.
What sort of imminent threat does
Oh, wait.
he pose
I just
that
realised.
cannot avoid?
Would you like to watch the video for this? Because there's a really good animatic which someone's made for this, so we can watch that if you want. I don't know. Actually, let's just listen to it for now.
This is the son of none other than Troy.
Let's put it on. Why not? Let's do it. Why not? Just start again. Hang on. Hang on. Yeah. Whoa, that's big. When did they discover this runestone, though, Commodore? I'm interested.
Alright, my brothers, listen
It's
closely.
very cool. Very well done.
Tonight we make the Trojans pay.
Very well done.
10 years of war, they killed us slowly. But now we'll be the ones who slay. Think of your wives and your children. Your families wonder where you've been. They're growing old and yet you're still here. Do what I say and you'll see them again.
Yes, sir!
Diomedes will lead the charge. Agamemnon will flank the guards. Menelaus will let our mates through the gates to take the whole city at large. Teucer will shoot any ambush attacking. Little Ajax will stay back. Nestor, secure Helen and protect her. Neo, avenge your father, kill the brothers of Hector.
Yes, sir.
Find that inner strength now. Use that well of pride. Fight through every pain now. Ask yourself inside what you live for, what you try for, what you wish for, what do you fight for.
What do you live for? What do you try for? What do you wish for? What do you fight for?
Penelope, Penelope, and Telemachus. I fight for ours. I fight
Ours.
for ours.
Oh, the way it's so funny the way he says that.
What do you try for?
Telemachus,
What do you wish for?
I'm on my way.
What do you fight for?
Attack!
People thought it was made by the Knights of the Earth, so it's called the North Star. Ah, that's cool.
Who was that?
We'll talk about it in a moment then, hang on. Let's just watch this.
A vision of what is to come cannot be outrun, can only be dealt with right here
It's
and now.
party.
Tell me how.
I don't think you're ready. A
You mean
mission
Zeus.
to kill someone's son, a foe who won't run.
I think it was Zeo the spell from
unlike anyone
Persona.
you have faced before.
Say no more. I know that I'm ready.
I don't think you're ready.
That's what the Athenians called him. Oh, I see. Yeah, there's different names. I can see it.
Just an infant. It's just
a boy.
What sort of imminent threat does he pose that I cannot avoid?
This is the son of none other than Troy's very own Prince Hector. Know that he will grow from a boy to an avenger, one fumed with rage as you're consumed by age. If you don't end him now, you'll have no one left to save. You can say goodbye to Penelope. You can say goodbye to Penelope.
I could raise him as my own, or send him far away make sure his past is never known. I'm gonna bring you down on your knees for ya. I'm begging, please.
Will of the gods.
Please don't make me do this. Don't make me do this.
The blood on your hands is something you won't lose. All you can choose is whose.
Excellent. Something I really like learning about is like the patron I guess like, not the patrons, but the symbolic animals behind different deus. Like obviously some of the Zeus is like the eagle. Athena is well known for being represented by the owl. Poseidon, I mentioned earlier on, Poseidon is to do with horses. I believe Hades or Pluto, whatever you want to call them, they are dogs mainly. I mean, Cerberus is enough of an indicator for that. Though I wonder what else could be counted. It's interesting you mentioned that a Norse one was found though, because like a Norse rune was found because like a lot of like people have come to the realization that travelers from Scandinavia, from like Iceland, so like Leif Erikson, originally landed in the Americas well before anyone found it in hundreds of years later in Europe. Before what's his name, that fellow who apparently founded America, before he landed there by accident, before the Spanish went to South America. It's very interesting. It's largely believed as well that the Vikings would have probably tried to trade and share gifts as peace offerings with the natives of the native tribes in America at the time, but likely would have been poisonous because they would have given them cheese, which they were not adapted to eating because their bodies had not adapted to consuming milk, or at the very least not adapted to consuming the high amount of lactose inside of it, and so it would have given them extremely bad diarrhea. So yeah, and obviously they didn't have like lactose-free milk at the time, so yeah. Anyway, let's get on to reading then, shall we? Let's just set everything up. One moment, please. Hi everyone. Hello. Hello. I don't know if my color looks okay for this. This is the image of Ithaca in the background, by the way. Columbus didn't even go to continental America and not the US parts that became the USA. Interesting. I didn't know that. I just know that a lot of the stuff attributed to Christopher Columbus was not his own doing. Or at the very least it was accidental. Oh, let's just move here. Oh. Yeah. Just have a sip of water. I hope the mood is being sufficiently set with this. So, shall we start? So yes, we are using the translation by Evie Ryu. Again, apologies for pronouncing that wrong. This version actually, it's not the version on screen, it's the Penguin Classics version, which is my old version, but I just really like this front cover, it's fantastic artwork, so I wanted to put that here. Interestingly, this has a map of mainland Greece at the time, which is kind of meant to be an estimation of the potential course they would have travelled, through using both the real-life landmarks and the fictional ones they come with along the way. But, yeah. With that being said, let's start. Let's start and listen. Nope. Just gonna turn the sound down on the sea. Just picture your mind that you're in sunny Greece. You're tired from war and hunger, and you're lying down on the beach. The seas are rolling over you. And then your friend, a local poet, decides to start telling a tale to help lift the spirits of you and all your comrades. And the sea is slowly, slowly drowned out as you are stuck on your friend Homer's words. Book 1. Athene visits Telemachus. Tell me, Muse, the story of that resourceful man who was driven to wander far and wide after he had sacked the holy citadel of Troy. He saw the cities of many people, and he learnt their ways. He suffered great anguish on the high seas in his struggles to preserve his life and bring his comrades home. But he failed to save those comrades, in spite of all his efforts. It was their own transgression that brought them to their doom, for in their folly they devoured the oxen of Hyperion the sun god, and he saw to it they would never return. Tell us this story, goddess, daughter of Zeus, beginning at whatever point you will. All the survivors of the War of Troy had reached their homes by now, and so put the perils of battle and the sea behind them. Odysseus alone was prevented from returning to the home and wife he yearned for by that powerful goddess, the nymph Calypso, who longed for him to marry her, and kept him in her vaulted cave. Not even when the rolling seasons brought in the year which the gods had chosen for his homecoming to Ithaca was he clear of his troubles and safe among his friends. Yet all the gods pitied him, except Poseidon, who pursued the heroic Odysseus with relentless malice till the day when he reached his own country. Poseidon, however, was now gone on a visit to the distant Ethiopians, in the most remote part of the world, half of whom live where the sun goes down, half where he rises. He had gone to accept a sacrifice of bulls and rams, and there he sat and enjoyed the pleasures of the feast. Meanwhile, the rest of the gods had assembled in the palace of Olympian Zeus, and the father of men and gods opened a discussion among them. He had been thinking of the handsome Aegisthus, whom Agamemnon's far-famed son Orestes killed, and it was with Aegisthus in mind that Zeus now addressed the immortals. What a lamentable thing it is that men should blame the gods and regard us the source of their troubles. when it is their own transgressions which bring them suffering. That was not their destiny. Consider Aegisthus. It was not his destiny to steal Agamemnon's wife and murder her husband when he came home. He knew the result would be utter disaster, since we ourselves had sent Hermes, the keen-eyed giant slayer, to warn him neither to kill the man nor court his wife. For Orestes, as Hermes told him, was bound to avenge Agamemnon as soon as he grew up, and thought with longing of his home. Yet with all his friendly counsel, Hermes failed to dissuade him. And now Aegisthus has paid the final price for all his sins. The goddess of the flashing eyes, Athene, answered him at once. Father of ours, son of Kronos, king of kings, Aegisthus' end is just what he deserved. May all who act as he did share his fate. It is for Odysseus that my heart is wrung, the wise and unlucky Odysseus, who has been parted so long from all his friends, and is pining on a lonely island far away in the middle of the seas. The island is well wooded, and a goddess lives there, the child of the malevolent Atlas, who knows the depths of all the seas and supports the great columns that hold earth and sky apart. It is his daughter who is keeping the unhappy man from home, grieving. Day after day she does her best to banish Ithaca from his memory with soft, persuasive words. And Odysseus, who would give anything for the mere sight of the smoke rising up from his own land, can only yearn for death. Yet your Olympian heart is quite unmoved. Tell me, did the sacrifices he made you by the Argives' ships on the plains of Troy find no favour in your sight? Why are you at odds with Odysseus, Zeus? Nonsense, my child, replied the gatherer of the clouds. How could I ever forget the admirable Odysseus? He is not only the wisest man alive, but has been most generous in his offerings to the immortals who live in the wide heaven. It is Poseidon, sustainer of the earth, who is so implacable towards him, on account of the Cyclops, godlike Polyphemus, the most powerful of the Cyclopes, whom Odysseus blinded. His mother was the sea nymph Thoosa, daughter of Phorcys, lord of the salt sea waves. And it was Poseidon who gave her this child, and when he slept with her in her cavern hollowed by the sea. That is why, ever since Polyphemus has been blinded, Poseidon the Earthshaker has kept Odysseus in exile, though he stops short of killing him. But come now, let us all here together contrive a plan to bring him home. Poseidon will relent, or he will not be able to struggle on against the united will of the immortal gods. Bright-eyed Athene answered him, Father of ours, son of Kronos, king of kings, if it is now the pleasure of the blessed gods that the wise Odysseus shall return to Ithaca, let us send our messenger, Hermes, the giant killer, to the isle Ogygia, so that he can immediately tell Calypso, the nymph with the plaited tresses, of our unalterable decision that the patient Odysseus must now set out for home. Meanwhile, I myself will go to Ithaca to instill more spirit into Odysseus' son, and encourage him to call the long-haired Achaeans to an assembly, and speak his mind at the crowd of suitors who spend their time in the wholesale slaughter of his jostling sheep and his shambling cattle with their twisted horns. After that, I will send him to Sparta and to sandy Pylos to seek news of his father's return. It is possible that he may be near of him, and so win the praise of men. He may hear of him, and so win the praise of men. Begone. There we go. This said, Athene bound on her feet, her lovely sandals of untarnishable gold, which carried her with the speed of the wind over the water of the unending land, and seized her heavy spear with its point of sharpened bronze, the huge, long spear with which she breaks the ranks of noble warriors when she, the daughter of the mighty father, is angry with them. She flashed down from the heights of Olympus, and on reaching Ithaca, she took her stand on the threshold of the court in front of Odysseus' house. And to look like a visitor, she assumed the appearance of a family friend, the Taphian chieftain Mentes, bronze spear in hand. She found the insolent suitors sitting in front of the door on the hides of oxen they themselves had slaughtered, playing with counters. Their squires and pages were busy round them, some blending wine and water in the mixing bowls, and others carving meat in lavish portions, and wiping down the tables with sponges before they had set them ready. The first to see her was Telemachus, the godlike youth, who was sitting disconsolate among the suitors, imagining how his noble father might come back out of the blue, drive the suitors headlong from the house, and so regain his royal honours, and reign over his own house once more. Full of these visions, he caught sight of Athene, and set off at once for the porch, ashamed that a stranger should be kept standing at the gates. He went straight up to his visitor, grasped his right hand, took his bronze spear, and gave him cordial greetings. "Welcome, friend," he said. "You can tell us what has brought you to here when you've had some food." With this he led the way, and Pallas Athene followed. Once inside the lofty hall, he took her spear and put it by one of the great pillars in a wooden rack among the many spears of the patient Odysseus. He then conducted her to a beautiful carved chair, over which he spread a linen cloth, and seated her there with a stool for her feet. For himself, he drew up an ornate easy chair, well away from the crowd of suitors, for fear that his guest might take offence at the uproar, and finding himself in such ill-mannered company, turn with distaste from his meal. Moreover, he wished to question him about his absent father. Presently, a maid came with water in a fine golden jug, and poured it out over a silver basin for them to rinse their hands. She then drew a polished table to their side, and the faithful housekeeper brought some bread, and set it by them with a choice of delicacies, helping them liberally to all she could offer. Meanwhile, a steward served them plates of various meats he had selected from his board, and put gold cups beside them, which a steward filled with wine as he passed on his frequent rounds. The suitors came swaggering in, and sat down in rows on the seats and chairs. Their squires poured water on their hands, and the maids put piles of bread and bowls beside them. With the pages filled while the pages the squires let me read that again, sorry. Their squires poured water on their hands, and the maids put piles of bread in bowls beside them, while the pages filled the mixing bowls to the brim with wine. They helped themselves to the good things spread before them, and when all had satisfied their hunger and thirst, the suitors turned their thoughts to other activities, music and dancing, which add to the pleasure of a banquet. A herald brought a beautiful lyre, and handed it to Phemius, the minstrel whom they had forced into their service. He had just struck the first notes for some delightful song, when Telemachus spoke to bright-eyed Athene, with his head close to her ears, so that the others could not hear. Just 1 second, sorry. Just double checking something. There we go. Friend, you will be angry if I say something. How easy it is for that gang over there to think of nothing but music and songs. They are living free off another man. A man whose white bones are rotting in the rain upon some distant land, or rolling in the salt sea waves. One glimpse of him in Ithaca, and they'd pray for a faster pair of legs than a gold or rich clothes. But as it is, he has come to some dreadful end. No one on earth can bring us a spark of comfort by telling us that he'll come back the day. He'll come back. The day for that is gone forever. But tell me honestly, who are you? Tell me honestly, who are you, and where have you come from? What is your native town? Who are your parents? And since you certainly cannot have come on foot, what kind of vessel brought you here? How did the crew come to land in Ithaca? And who do they claim to be? And tell me the truth. I'd like to know. Is this your first visit to Ithaca, or has my father received you before? He used to entertain in our house just as often as he visited abroad. I will tell you everything honestly, answered the bright-eyed goddess Athene. My father was the wise prince Anchialus, my own name Mentes, and I am chieftain of the seafaring Taphians. As for my arrival in Ithaca, I came with my own ship and crew across the wide and dark sea. We are bound for the foreign port of Temesa, with a cargo of gleaming iron, which we mean to trade for bronze. My ship is not berthed near the city, but over by the open country in Retheron Cove, under the woods of Neon. As for our families, the ties between them go a long way back, as the old Laertes would tell you if you went and asked him. For I gather that he no longer comes to the town, but lives a miserable existence on his distant farm with an old woman servant who puts his food and drink before him when he has tired himself out by dragging himself up and down his vineyard on the hill. The reason for my presence here is this. I actually heard that he was home. I mean your father. But the gods must be hindering his return, because the good Odysseus is not dead, but alive somewhere on this earth. He must be on some distant island out in the sea, in the hands of enemies, savages, no doubt, who keep him there by force. Now, I am no seer or soothsayer, but I will venture on a prophecy to which the immortal gods put into my mind. I am certain it will come true. Your father will not be exiled much longer from the lands he loves so well, not even if he's kept in iron chains. He will think of a way to return. He is endlessly resourceful. But are you really Odysseus' son? How you have grown. Oh, you certainly have his head and his fine eyes. The likeness is startling to one who met him, and as often as I did. Though that was before he and the other great men of Argos all set out for Troy in their hollow ships. From that day to this, Odysseus and I have never set eyes on each other. My friend, answered the courteous Telemachus, I will be honest too. My mother certainly says I am Odysseus' son. But for myself I cannot tell. No man can be certain of his parentage. If only I were the son of some lucky man overtaken by old age among his own belongings. As it is, and since you ask me, the man whose son they say I am is the most unfortunate man that ever lived. Oh, and yet, said the goddess of the flashing eyes, with Penelope for your mother, I cannot think that your house is doomed to an inglorious future. But here is another matter I should like you to explain. What is the banquet for? Who are all these people? How are you concerned? Is it a private dinner or a wedding feast? Obviously these men have not brought their own food. At any rate, these banquets in your house strike me as domineering and insolent. Any decent man would be disgusted at the sight of such disgraceful behaviour. My friend, the courteous Telemachus replied, you may well ask. There was a time when this house was by way of being prosperous and respectable, when Odysseus was still among us. But since then, the gods have had other and more sinister designs. They have served him as they never served a man before. They have made him vanish. His death itself, if he had fallen among his men at Troy or died in friendly arms at home with all his fighting done, would have caused me less distress. For in that case, the whole Achaean nation would have joined in building him a mound, and he would have left a great name for his son to inherit. There was to be no famous end for him. The Storm Fiends have snatched him away. He is gone where he cannot be seen or found, and to me has left nothing, seen or found, and to me has left nothing but sorrow and tears. Not is it only on his account that I am sighing and grieving, for the gods have gone on piling other troubles on my head. Of all the island chieftains in Dulichium, in Same and in woodlands Acanthus, all the nobles in rocky Ithaca. There is not one that isn't courting my mother and wasting my property. As for her, though she hates the idea of remarrying, she cannot bring herself to take the final step of rejecting all the suitors or accepting one of them. Meanwhile, they are eating me out of house and home, and they will very soon destroy me too. Pallas Athene was moved. How disgraceful, she cried. Oh, how you miss your father! How much you need him to lay hands on this dissolute mob! Oh, if only he could show himself as at this moment at the palace gates, with his helmet, his shield, and his 2 spears, just as he was when I first saw him, drinking and in happy mood in our house. That time he came upon a fire after a long visit to Mermerus' son Ilus. He had sailed there in search of a deadly poison to smear on the bronze tips of his arrows, and Ilus, a god-fearing man, refused to supply him. But my father, who loved him dearly, gave it to him. Yes, if only Odysseus, as he then was, could confront these suitors, there'd be a quick death, and a sorry wedding for them all. But such matters, of course, lie in the lap of the gods. They must decide whether or not he's to come back and settle accounts in his palace. Meanwhile, I do urge you to find some way of ridding this house of these suitors. Listen carefully to what I suggest. Tomorrow morning, call the Achaean lords to the assembly, and announce your decision to them all, asking the gods to witness what you say. Tell the suitors to leave and go home. As for your mother, if she is set on marrying, let her go back to her father's house. He is a man of consequence, and the family will arrange a marriage and see that she has a generous dowry and is only right for a beloved daughter. For yourself, here is my advice. It is sound, and I hope you will take it. Choose your best ship, man her with 20 oarsmen, and set out to inquire after your long-absent father. Someone may be able to tell you about him, or you may pick up one of those rumours from Zeus that so often turn out to be true. Go to Pylos and question the excellent Nestor. Then on to Sparta to see Auber and herd Menelaus, since he was the last of the bronze-armoured Achaeans to reach home. If you hear that your father is alive and on his way back, you should reconcile yourself to a year more of this wastage. But if you hear that he is dead and gone, return to your own country, build a mound with all proper funeral rites, and give your mother in marriage to a new husband. This settled and done, you must think of some way of destroying his mob in your house, either by cunning or in open fight. You are no longer a child. You must put childish thoughts away. Have you not heard what a name Orestes made for himself in the world when he killed the cunning Aegisthus for murdering his noble father? You, my friend, and what a tall and splendid young man you have grown, must be as brave as Orestes. The future generations will sing your praises. But my crew must be tired of waiting for me, and I must now go to my good ship. I leave the matter in your hands. Think over what I have said. Sir, said the thoughtful Telemachus, you have spoken to me out of the kindness of your heart, like a father talking to his son. I shall never forget your words. Though you are anxious to be on your way, stay a little longer so that you can bathe and refresh yourself. Then you can go on your ships to a happy frame of mind, taking with you as a keepsake from myself something precious and beautiful, the sort of present that one gives to a guest who has become a friend. No, said the bright-eyed goddess. I am eager to be on my way. Do not detain me now. As for the gift you kindly suggest, let me take it home with me on my way back. Make it the best you can find, and you won't lose by the exchanging. You won't lose by the exchange. The goddess spoke, and the next moment she was gone, vanishing like a bird through a hole in the roof. In Telemachus's heart she had implanted spirit and daring, and had brought the image of his father to his mind even more strongly than before. He felt the change and was overcome with awe, for he realized a god had been with him. Then, godlike himself, he rejoined the suitors. Let's take another sip of water. Oh, thank you, Common. He found them listening in silence to a song which their famous bard was singing to them about the Achaeans' return from Troy and their disasters about that Pallas Athene made them suffer. In her room upstairs, Penelope, the gracious daughter of Icarius, took in the words of the stirring ballad and came down from her quarters by the steep staircase, not alone, but with 2 waiting women in attendance. When she came near her suitors, the great lady drew a fold of her shining veil across her cheeks, and took her stand by a pillar of the massive roof, with one of her fearful maids on either side. Then, bursting into tears, she broke in on the inspired minstrel. "Phemius," she said, "with your knowledge of the ballads that poets have made about the deeds of men or gods, you could enchant us with many other tales rather than this. Choose one of those now for your audience here. Let them drink their wine in peace. But give us no more of your present song. It is too sad. It never fails to wring my heart. For in that catastrophe no one was dealt a heavier blow than I, who pass my days in mourning for the best of husbands, the man whose name rings to the land from Hellas to the heart of Argos." But the prudent Telemachus intervened. "Mother," he said, "why grudge our loyal bard with the right to entertain us the spirit that moves him? Surely it is not the poets who are responsible for what happens, but Zeus himself. It is not the poets who are responsible for what happens, but Zeus himself, who deals with each of us toilers on earth as he sees fit. We cannot blame Phemius if he chooses to sing of the Danaans' tragic fate, for it is always the latest song that an audience applauds the most. You must be brave and nerve yourself to listen, for Odysseus is not the only one who has never returned from Troy. Troy was the end of many another man. So go to your quarters now and attend to your own work, the loom and the spindle, and tell the servants to get on with theirs. Making decisions must be men's concern, and mine in particular, for I am the master in this house." Penelope was taken aback, but she retired to her own apartments, where she took her son's sensible words to heart. Attended by her maids, she went upstairs to her bedroom, and there she wept for Odysseus, her beloved husband, till bright-eyed Athene closed her eyes in sweet sleep. Meanwhile, in the shadowy hall, the suitors burst into uproar, and each man voiced a prayer that he might sleep with her. Ugh. But the thoughtful Telemachus called them to order. "Gentlemen," he cried, "from you who court my mother, this is sheer insolence. For the moment, let us dine and enjoy ourselves, but quietly, for it is a lovely thing to listen to a minstrel such as we have here, with a voice like a god's. But in the morning I propose that we all take place in assembly, so that I can announce my demand that you quit my palace. Yes, you can feast yourselves somewhere else, and eat your provisions in each other's homes. Or do you think it sounder scheme to destroy one man's estate and not make restitution? Then eat your fill, while I pray that Zeus will bring a day of reckoning, when in this house I will destroy you, and not make restitution." It amazed them all that Telemachus should have the audacity to adopt this tone, and they could only bite their lips. But at last Antonius, Eupeithes' son, spoke up in answer. "It is obvious that the gods are teaching you this bold and haughty way of speaking. Being your father's son, you are heir to the island's realm. Heaven grant that you may never be its king." Antonius, the prudent Telemachus answered, it may disappoint you to learn that I would gladly accept the office from the hands of Zeus. Perhaps you argue that nothing worse could happen to a man. I, on the contrary, maintain that it is no bad thing to be a king. To see one's house enriched, and one's authority enhanced. However, the Achaeans are not short of princes. Young and old they swarm in sea-girt Ithaca. And since the great Odysseus is dead, let one of them succeed him. But I intend at least to be master of my own house, and the servant whom my royal father won for me in a war. This time it was Eurymachus, son of Polybus, who answered him. Telemachus, the gods must of course decide who is to be our king in sea-girt Ithaca. But by all means, keep your own belongings and rule your own house. I pray that no one comes and lays violent hands on your property as long as there are people in Ithaca. But my dear Telemachus, do tell us something about that guest of yours. Where did the man come from? What account does he give of his country? Who might his people be? And what is his native land? Does he bring news of your father's coming, or is he in here on business of his own? He looked distinguished, but he jumped up and was gone so suddenly that he gave no one time to get to know him. Eurymachus, the sensible Telemachus replied, it is certain that my father will never come back, so I no longer believe any rumours, whatever their source. Nor have I any use for the skill of such diviners as my mother may call on for consolation. As for my guest, he is an old friend of my father from Tavos. He introduced himself as Mentes, the son of wise Anchialus, and chieftain of the seafaring Tavians. This is what Telemachus said, but in his heart he knew her of an immortal goddess. From then till dusk they gave themselves up to the pleasures of dancing and the delights of song. Night fell, and found them still revelling, but at last they went off to bed, each to his own house. Telemachus, busy with his thoughts, retired to his own bedroom, a lofty chamber in the fine courtyard with a clear view on every side. He was escorted by the faithful Eurycleia, who carried a blazing torch. This Eurycleia was the daughter of Ops and granddaughter of Pisanor. Laertes had procured her at his own cost long ago, when she was still a girl, for the price of 20 oxen. He had treated her in his home with all the respect due to a loyal wife, though for fear of his wife's displeasure, he had not slept with her. It was she who now served as torchbearer to his grandson, and she who all the household women loved him most, for she had nursed him as a child. Telemachus threw open the door of his solidly built room, sat down on the bed, and took off his soft tunic, which he put in the wise old woman's hands. After folding it and smoothing it out, she hung it on a peg by the wooden bedstead, and withdrew from the bedroom, pulling the door to by the silver handle, and shooting the bolt home by means of its leather thong. And there, all the night long, under his woolen blanket, Telemachus lay planning in his mind the journey that Athene had suggested. And yeah, that's the first book of the Odyssey. It's a little build-up. We're building up to things. That was very fun to read. It's very, very nice. It's actually quite late for me now. I should have probably started early if I was going to read this, but I guess we still have time to read some more. We could probably read the second book as well. It's not very long. But before that, I just wanted to talk about some brief points about it. So, and this is where my notes and stuff come in. So it mentions that, yeah, at the beginning of it, the poet voice asks for the muses to begin at whatever point you will for the story. And that's referred to, I can hear your drama club kid. Thank you. I actually studied drama in school. We actually had lessons for it. I don't know if that's a thing in America commonly, but we had that in school as well. You could study acting and drama. But yes, so medias res would be the term in Greek for basically beginning in the middle of the action. And that's what this is. You know, we're starting. You can do that here too. Excellent. Excellent. It's good to hear. It's good to know the arts are still alive. But yes, a medias res would be the term used to describe it, as like beginning in the middle of the action, essentially. Just a couple of things here. So, there's a bit of a pun, just as a note here. So, there's a bit of a pun here, which the translator notes. So, when Athene is talking to Zeus and imploring him for why he's not helped Odysseus, she makes a line here. Why are you at odds with Odysseus, Zeus? Which is kind of meant to be a bit of a pun. Obviously, odds, Odysseus. There's a pun there, and it's evident that she's asking a lot from him essentially in this, and she's being very polite, and like she refers to him in like with many titles: a father of sons, son of Kronos, king of kings, and all these big epithets for him. Addresses him like that in a very polite manner, but is also trying to basically be a bit witty with him to try and like endear him more to her side, which I think is a very, very smart play. And you can see her wisdom coming through in her wordplay there, which I think is very charming. She's very much trying to like endear Zeus to her point of view, which obviously does not even need to happen, because Zeus then goes and say, "Oh, that's nonsense. He's been great to me, and he's destined to arrive, but like it's Poseidon who's at fault." But yeah, they all make a plan of action there. There's another moment here. What was it now? Where was it? They mentioned about Pylos. Where was it now? One second, I'm trying to find where it was. Oh right, yeah. So they're on about like different heroes and stuff. So I mentioned about Sparta and Pylos. They were where Menelaus and the hero Nestor lived. So yeah, just a lot of geographical terms for real places here as well. A lot of places referencing real things here. So I mentioned earlier on about wine being diluted, and that's what knocks out Polyphemus later on. It does mention that here actually as well. So wine would have been diluted generally in like a 1-to-3 ratio, being an average. The wine which Odysseus later gives him is very strong. I think it's like a 1-to-7 ratio of watering down. Just to dilute it enough to be drinkable, because it's very, very strong. But yeah, that's but there's also notes here. So Athene first arrives in disguise as Odysseus' old friend, the first thing you see it's this absolute rabble of people in the courtyard of Odysseus' house, just making a mess of things. The first thing Telemachus does is go and greet him and offer him hospitality, and it's a very important thing in Greece. I mentioned before about how like to say there's Greek culture may be a bit disingenuous because it was a bunch of city-states with their own cultures. Something which was very much spread around all of Greece and was seen as a very common trend was the idea of guest hospitality. Now, it was the idea that if someone arrives at your door, you must do your absolute best as a person to oblige for them, to look after them and do your best, even do the best within your means to look after them, right? And it was a very important part of like Greek culture and politeness and everything like that. There was actually an old several old wives' tales. Xenia, yes, thank you for that. I've forgotten the term for it. I used to know it was guest. Xenia, I believe, literally translated into guest hospitality. But yeah. So the idea of like all these men are there, these men of status, just ignore this guy. And then the one who's the least the least likely of all, Telemachus, who's got despite claiming to the master of his house later on, he's not the master of anything at the moment. He's in the weakest position. He's kind of surrounded by all these guys who he doesn't like, who are trying to get with his mum. He goes to him and he says, "Oh, sir, please come before you do anything. Let's get you something to eat. Let's sit you down, have something to drink. Then you can tell me all about yourself. But first off, let's get you something to eat." Like that's his first concern. It's meant to be like a really good like moral standing for him. It's a very good moral standing at a bit of like a a moral ideal for people to reach. Like, yes, you should be like this for people. It was a common myth associated with this, a common story people tell of oh, you should always make sure to be as hospitable as possible to people and do your best to accommodate when you can, lest they be a god in disguise or a goddess in disguise and they can punish you for poor hospitality. Whilst many people equate Zeus to being the thunder god, and he is a god of skies and the thunder, he's also a god of hospitality, which is maybe not something people would normally associate with him, but he was very much one of hospitality, and if you were found to be inhospitable to someone, Zeus would punish you for it. That was the belief of the time. And, the idea here is that all these men, they've taken advantage of that hospitality. They've been offered food and drink, and they've just kind of taken advantage of that over years now to just lay waste to all the belongings of the house of Odysseus. And it's very, it's a very much, it's night and day here, obviously. Again, it's all meant to show, even Telemachus, who, whilst he does not have the legacy of his dad, it represents godlike Telemachus. He's this moral symbol of like goodness, which the audience is meant to root for, versus all these people who are just being like rude jerks, essentially. Rude men who come in and are eating out of house and home and offering nothing in return. And, even then, Athene, when in disguise, says that, oh, you can give me that present on the way back home and I'll make sure I return it in favor. It's like mutual hospitality there. It's like, oh, you've done a favor for me, I'll do one by you. Obviously, that will never happen because it was a god in disguise. It was a goddess in disguise, but, even that actually, so it was a rule of, one of my notes here I had written down here, it was a rule of Xenia, you do not ask for someone's name, you wait for them to be spoken by them. You do not ask, hey, who are you, where are you from? You make sure that everything is settled, that they're looked after first, and then, only then, under rules of Xenia, can you ask that kind of thing. But yeah, and they're not like shown to be like the suitors who are taking advantage of the situation. They're not good people at all. It mentions that the bard Phemius, the minstrel, he's basically being forced to work for them, which is not a great look. It also mentioned Odysseus' father here, Laertes. He's essentially like a hermit now. Now that his son is dead, or believed to be missing, believed to be dead, Laertes is just kind of living on a farm now as a hermit on a vineyard, just working when he can, as it says. And he's in a really sad state. I wish people believed that. I know there are neo-pagans, but the torch died and they just relit it. Wait, what? I wish people still believe that. I read that wrong. I know there are neo-pagans, but the torch died. And I think it's good practice to make sure. I think it's just good manners, right? Look after people when you can, right? Now, obviously, again, there's a limit here. Again, the point is that these suitors have went far past that limit, and they have broken all the laws of Xenia. But I think it's a moral lesson even today still stands, right? Be good to people. The thing is, Xenia could even apply to strangers. If someone came to knocking at your door saying, "Please, please, may I have help," and they supplicated themselves to you, under rules of Xenia, it was in your best interest to be okay. We'll do our best to help you out. And obviously the means by which you might be able to do that may not be a lot, right? If you're a poor family yourself, you may only be able to spare a scrap of bread or something like that. But it's something, and you've tried it, right? Yeah. At least Shintoism never died. It's weird. It's kind of like Shintoism kind of just like worked its way into Japanese culture as a whole, though, didn't it? So it's interesting. The way Japan views religion and gods is very interesting. But also another thing here in this first book, it's bringing up constant themes of Orestes, and if you don't know that, so I've got a bunch of Greek plays I found as well from when I was studying it as well, which maybe I can do a reading of those Greek plays on stream as well sometime. But it's a story of Agamemnon, the king, basically the leader of the Greeks at Troy. Kind of a dickhead, honestly, but he kind of sets out. He returns back home and is essentially betrayed. Is betrayed by is it Augustus, his name? Yeah, Augustus, and his wife Clytemnestra. There's actually a play which is pretty controversial for the time, actually, when it was written, which has Clytemnestra kill Agamemnon instead. And it was very controversial at the time. It was very, very, not outlandish, what's the term? Very scandalous, as it were. But, But yeah, that was the this retelling of it, which this Greek playwright, whose name I can't remember because there's a lot of them, wrote, and it was very scandalous at the time. Even the Christian Japanese, they don't treat people outside their faith as defective version of what. No, yeah, like, I do find it actually. Speaking of like Christians, it reminds me. It's very interesting. I didn't know this. Apparently, so many Koreans like moved to America for like Christian missionary work. I didn't know this was a thing, but apparently a lot of like people of Korean descent living in America today are there because their families moved there because Christianity spread to South Korea, and I guess it was even before it was split between North and South Korea, which is very interesting. But yeah, I guess it just kind of weaves its way into everything. Even like itadakimasu is kind of like, like it's this thing that everyone says. It's got its roots in Buddhism, and it links all the way back to this. It's the idea of like thanking everything from every point of Earth for the bringing you this meal as it was right now, because everything on Earth has worked and died for this meal you have, and it's all to do with that, which is very interesting, I think. Yeah. But yeah, also yeah, it refers to Telemachus here several times as godlike, and it's kind of like a cool omen of what's to come. Like, yes, he may be a bit of a wuss now, but he will be godlike. He's been touched by a goddess, and he will be great. Yeah. So here's some notes I wanted to talk about. Let's move on to the second book. Actually, tell you what, I need to stretch for a moment. 1 second, please. Touch my... Okay, you know what I mean. I'll be back in 1 second. Just going to stretch for a moment. Point on the doll where the goddess touched you. That is foul, Commodore. That is truly foul, Commodore. Oh well. Let's move on to Book 2. Book 2. The Debate in Ithaca. As soon as dawn appeared, fresh and rosy-fingered Odysseus' son got up from his bed and put his clothes on. He slung a sharp sword from his shoulder, bound a stout pair of sandals on his glistening feet, and strode from his bedroom looking like a god. He at once gave orders to the clear-voiced cries to call the long-haired Achaeans to assembly. The herald cried their summons, and the people quickly gathered. When all had arrived and the assembly was complete, Telemachus himself set out for the meeting place, bronze spear in hand, escorted only by 2 hunting dogs. Athene endowed him with such supernatural grace that all eyes turned on him with an admiration when he came up. The elders made way for him as he took his father's seat. Aegyptius, an old lord bent with years and rich in wisdom, was the first to speak. His own soldier son, Antiphus, had sailed with godlike Odysseus in the big ships to Ilium in the city of horses, only to be killed by the savage Cyclops on his cavern home. On his cavern home, when he made the last of his meals off Odysseus's men. And although he had 3 other sons, Eurynomus, who had joined with the suitors, and 2 who worked steadily in their father's estate, and Tiphys was always in his mind. His grief was inconsolable, and it was with tears for this lost son that he now rose to address the gathering. "My fellow countrymen, listen to what I have to say. Not since my son, not once since the good Odysseus sailed, have we been called to assembly or council meeting here. Who has summoned us now? Was it one of the young men, or one of the older generation? Or was it his pressing need? Perhaps he has heard of an army's approach, and wishes to tell us the early news he has received. Or is there some other matter of public concern that he intends to raise for discussion? Good man, I say in any case, our blessing on him. May Zeus reward him with his heart's desire." His auspicious words delighted Odysseus' son. Eager to speak, he left his seat without further ado, and took stand in the middle of the assembly. The herald Pisanor, a shrewd, experienced counsellor, thrust the speaker's staff into his hand, and Telemachus, turning first to old Aegyptus, began. "Venerable sir, you shall have the truth at once. The man who summoned this gathering is not far to seek. It was I. I am in great distress. Of an army's approach I have heard nothing to tell you, nor is it some other question of public concern that I propose to bring forward, but my own private business, the affliction, the double affliction, that has fallen on my house. In the first place, I have lost my good father, who was once king amongst you, here and gentle as a father to you all. But now there is a far greater calamity, one which will bring my house to utter ruin and rob me of any livelihood I have. A crowd of suitors are pestering my mother with their unwanted attentions, and these suitors are actually the sons of those who are your leaders here. Too cowardly to present themselves at their father's house for Icarius to make terms of his daughter's hand with the claimant he prefers, they spend all day in and out of our house. They slaughter our oxen, our sheep, our fatted goats. They feast themselves and drink our sparkling wine, with never a thought for all the wealth that is being wasted. The truth is that there is no one like Odysseus in charge to purge the house of this blight. We are not able to defend it ourselves. We would prove miserably weak, quite untrained to fight. Yet I would willingly fight if I had the strength. For I tell you, the things they do are past all bearing. The destruction of my house is an injustice, which you, gentlemen, should resent not only on your own behalf, but as a scandal to our neighbours who live round about. You should shrink from the wrath of the gods. Have you no fear that they may be outraged by your wickedness and turn on you? In the name of Olympian Zeus, in the name of Themis, who summons and dissolves the councils of men, I beg you, my friends, to leave me alone with my bitter grief. Unless by any chance you think that my good father harmed the well-grieved Achaeans out of malice, and you are trying to repay me with equal malice by the encouragement you give these men? If only it were you men of Ithaca who were devouring our treasure and our flocks, I think we should be better off. For in that case we should not have far to look for compensation. We should simply hound you up and down the towns for the restitution of our goods till every item was repaid. As it is, you fill my heart with a pain for which I find no cure." As he spoke, his passion rose, and at the end he burst into tears and flung the staff on the ground. A wave of pity swept through the gathering. Nobody made a move. Nobody had the heart to give Telemachus a sharp reply. And the silence was unbroken, till Antonius retorted, What a speech, Telemachus, and what a temper! So you put us to shame, would you, and fix the blame on us? You are wrong. We suitors plead not guilty. It is your own mother, that incomparable schemer, who is the culprit. Listen. For 3 whole years, in fact close on 4, she has been leading us on, giving us all some grounds for hope. And in her private messages for each making promises that she has not the slightest intention of keeping. And here's another example of her duplicity. On her loom in her house she set up a great web, and began weaving a large and delicate piece of work. She said to us, "O my lords, my suitors, now that noble Odysseus is dead, restrain your ardor. Do not urge on this marriage till I have done this work, so that the threads I have spun may not be altogether wasted. It is a shroud for Lord Laertes. When he succumbs to the dread hand of remorseless death that stretches all men out at last, I must not risk the scandal that would be among my countrywomen here if one had amassed such wealth were laid to rest without a shroud." That's what she said. And we magnanimously consented. So by day she used to weave the great web, but every night she had torches set beside it, and undid the work. For 3 years she took us in by this trick. A 4th began, and the seasons were slipping by. One of her women who knew all about it gave her mistress away. We caught her unraveling her beautiful work, and she was forced reluctantly to complete it. Here is the suitor's answer, Telemachus. And I want you and all the people to be quite clear about it. Send your mother away, and make her marry the man whom her father chooses and whom she prefers. She must be aware of trying our young men's patience much further, and counting too much on the matchless gifts that she owes to Athene, her skill in fine handicraft, her excellent brain, and that genius that she has for getting her way. In that respect, I grant she is no equal, not even in story. For of all the Achaeans' beauties of former times, not Tyro, nor Alcmene, nor Mycenae, of the lovely diadem, not Mycenae of the lovely diadem, had at her command such wits as she. Yet in the present case, Penelope has misused those wits, for I assure you that so long as she maintains this attitude that the gods have guided her to adopt, the suitors will continue to eat you out of your house and home. She may be winning a great name for herself, but at what expense to you? So we will not return to our own estates, nor go anywhere else, until she makes her choice and marries one of us. Antonius, the thoughtful Telemachus replied, it is quite impossible for me to cast out, against her will, the mother who bore me and who brought me up, with my father somewhere at the world's end, perhaps alive, perhaps dead. Think what I would have to pay Icarius if I were to send my mother back to him. I would suffer at his hands, and the gods would send me further disasters, because my mother as she left would call down on me the avenging furies. And I would incur the wrath of my countrymen. You may be sure that I will never give the word. If you feel angry about this, then quit my palace and feast somewhere else, eating your own food in each other's houses. But if you think it a sounder scheme to destroy one man's estate and not make restitution, then eat your fill, while I pray that Zeus will bring a day of reckoning, when in this house I will destroy you, and not make restitution. In answer to his words, Zeus the Thunderer urged 2 eagles into flight from the mountain top. For a while, they sailed down the wind with outstretched pinions, wing to wing, outstretched pinions even, wing to wing. But as soon as they were directly over the meeting place, with the sound of voices filled the air, they began to flap their wings and wheel about, glancing down at the faces of the crowd with looks foreboding death. Then, with their talons, they clawed at each other's cheeks and neck, and so swooped eastward over the housetops of the busy town. The people stared at the birds in amazement and asked themselves what was to come of it. At last, the old hero, Halitherses, Mastor's son, spoke out. He knew more of bird lore and soothsaying than any man of his generation, and had his countrymen's welfare at heart when he rose now to address them.
People of Ithaca, hear what I have to say, and my pronouncement is meant particularly for the suitors. A great calamity is about to engulf them. Odysseus is not going to be parted from his friends much longer. At this very moment, he is close at hand, sowing the seeds of a bloody doom for the suitors, one and all, which means disaster to many others, many of us who live under the clear skies of Ithaca. Let us plan to stop these men before it happens. Or rather, won't they stop atop their own accord, which would be the better course? I am not unskilled in prophecy. I speak from ripe experience. Consider Odysseus. Has not everything happened as I warned that self-reliant man when he embarked for Ilium with the Argive army? I said he would return home in the 20th year after much suffering, having lost all his comrades, and that no one would know him when he came. And now all this is coming true. It was Eurymachus, Polybus' son, who rose to reply. That's enough, old man, he said. Run home and read omens to your children of some disaster that may happen to them, and leave me to interpret these signs. I'm better at it than you. After all, plenty of birds go about their business in the sunny air, but it isn't everyone that is a bird of omen. As for Odysseus, he has met his fate abroad. If only you had shared his fate. We should then have been spared this tedious prophesying from your mouth, and you wouldn't be fueling Telemachus' anger. No doubt you expect him at some time to make a gift of your household. But now, I will make a prophecy, and this will come true. If you, his senior, with the lore of the ages at your disposal, misuse your eloquence to incite this young man to violence, in the first place, it will be all the worse for him. And secondly, for you, old man, there will be the extremely unpleasant consequence that we shall impose on you a fine. It will break your heart to pay. But Telemachus, here is my own advice. I give it openly, before you all. Let him tell his mother to return to her father's house, where they will make arrangements for their wedding, and see that she has a generous dowry, as is only right for a much-loved daughter. Not till that is done can I see the sons of the Achaeans giving up their unwelcoming suit. For we are afraid of no one at all, certainly not of Telemachus for all his rhetoric. Nor, old man, do we pay the slightest attention to those prophecies that fall from your lips. They come to nothing and only make you even more hated. No. Telemachus must see his wealth ruthlessly consumed without hope of restitution, so long as Penelope keeps us kicking our heels in this matter of her marriage. Meanwhile, we stay. And instead of each seeking a suitable bride, we feed our hopes from day to day on the thought of the incomparable prize of which we are on the thought. Meanwhile, we stay, and instead of each seeking a suitable bride, we feed our hopes from day to day on the thought of the incomparable prize of which we are competing. Just realised the backing music's still on. Eurymachus, the thoughtful Telemachus replied, and all you distinguished suitors, I make no further appeal. I've said my say. The gods and the whole people here have heard my case. So now give me a fast ship and a crew of 20 to see me to my journey's end and back.
For I am going to Sparta and to sandy Pylos to inquire after my long-lost father, in the hope that someone may be able to tell me about him, or that I may pick up one of those rumours from Zeus that so often turn out to be true. If I hear that he is alive, and on his way back, then, harassed though I am, I will hold out for 1 more year. But if I learn that he is dead and gone, I shall come home, build him a mound with all the proper funeral rites, and give my mother in marriage to a new husband. Telemachus resumed his seat, and Mentor rose to speak. Mentor was an old friend of Odysseus, to whom the king had entrusted his whole household when he sailed, with orders to defer to the aged Laertes and keep everything safe and sound. He spoke now from the goodness of his heart.
My fellow citizens, he said, kindness, generosity, and justice should no longer be the aims of any man who wields the royal scepter. In fact, he might just as well devote his days to tyranny and lawless deeds, since none of those whom the godlike Odysseus ruled with a father's loving care give a thought to him today. Of course, it is not for me to pass judgment on the villainy of these black-hearted suitors. It is of their own skins they are risking when they squander Odysseus' estate in the belief that he is gone forever. No, it is the rest of you sitting there in silence that stir my indignation. They are few, and you are many. Yet not a word have they had from you in condemnation or restraint. Up sprang Leocritus, Eunor's son.
Mentor, you crazy fool, he shouted at him. What are you saying, inciting people to stop us? It's expecting much of men to take up arms over a meal, even with the odds in their favour. Even if Odysseus of Ithaca himself came back and took it into his head to drive us nobles from the palace because he found us dining in his hall, his wife would have no joy of his return, for much as she may have missed him. Then and there he'd come to an ignominious end, fighting alone against so many. So what you suggest is out of the question. But enough of this. Break up the meeting, and each man go back to his own estate, while Mentor and Halitherses, as old friends of his father, speed Telemachus on his way. They'll have an idea that he'll never bring this journey off, but he'll find himself sitting in Ithaca for many a long day, gathering news as best he can. The assembled people were quick to accept this dismissal, and now scattered their homes, while the suitors made their way to the King Odysseus' palace. In the meantime, Telemachus sought the solitude of the seashore, where he washed his hands in the grey surf, and lifted them in prayer to Athene. Here, I beg you. You and in your godhead came yesterday to my house. It was your command that I should sail across the misty seas and find out whether my father, whether my long-lost father, is ever coming back. But my countrymen, and above all those suitors that besieged my mother, are thwarting me at every point. This was the prayer. Athene drew near to him, and assuming the form and voice of Mentor, addressed him with winged words. Telemachus, you will be neither a coward nor a fool in the future, if your father's manly vigour has descended on you. Oh, what a man he was in word and deed! This journey of yours will not prove futile or fruitless. It is only if you were not the true son of Odysseus and Penelope that I would think your plans might come to nothing. Few sons, indeed, are like their fathers. Generally, they are worse, but just a few are better. And since you are by no means lacking in Odysseus' resourcefulness, and you will be no fool or coward in the future, you can hope to succeed in this undertaking. So forget the suitors now. Dismiss their plots and machinations from your mind. They are fools, and there is no sense in them. Nor have they any inkling of the dark fate that is stalking so near and will strike them all down in a single day. Sorry, just double checking. You, meanwhile, will soon be starting this journey you've set your heart on. For I am not your father's friend, and ready to find. For am I not your father's friend, and ready to find you a fast ship and sail with you myself? Go home now, and show yourself to the suitors. Then get provisions ready, and stow them all in containers, the wine in jars and barley meal that gives men strength in strong skins. Meanwhile, I will soon collect a crew of volunteers in the town, and there are plenty of ships, old and new, in seagirt Ithaca. I myself will pick out the best for you, and you'll have her rigged in no time, and launch her on the open sea. Athene, daughter of Zeus, had spoken, and there was no loitering there for Telemachus when he heard the voice of the goddess. He set off at once for home, though with an anxious heart. At the palace he found the high and mighty suitors skinning goats. And singeing fattened hogs in the courtyard. Antonius, with a laugh, ran up to him and seized his hand and loudly called his name and said, "Telemachus, my fiery young orator, enough now of hard words and thoughts of violence. Let me see you eat and drink with us as usual. Our people will make all arrangements on your behalf for a ship and picked crew to speed you on your way to sacred Pylos on your noble father's trail." But sagacious Telemachus replied, "Antonius, it is out of the question for a man to sit down to a quiet supper and take his ease with a rowdy mob like you. Isn't it enough that all this time, under pretext of your suit, you have been robbing me of my best, while I was still too young to understand? I tell you now that I'm old enough to learn from others what happened, and to feel my own strength at last. I will do my best to send you all to perdition, whether I go to Pylos or stay here in Ithaca. And I shall not be thwarted over this journey of mine. I am going, if only as a passenger, since it seems to have suited you better that I should not be allowed to ship a crew of my own." With this, Telemachus calmly withdrew his hand from Antonius. The suitors, who had been preparing a meal, greeted this speech with a storm of insults and derisions. I do believe," said one arrogant young man, "Telemachus wants to cut our throats, and he's off to Sandy Pylos to get help. Perhaps he'll go as far as Sparta and back, and since he's so thirsty for our blood, make care to him that the fertile soil of fire is worth a visit. He'll come home with a deadly poison, drop it in the wine bowl and kill us all off." Another insolent young youth chimed in. But who knows? If he takes too long, if he takes to seafaring, he may stray from home and be lost like Odysseus, far from his friends. What a nuisance that would be for us! All the extra trouble of dividing his property between us and presenting his house to his mother and her bridegroom. Telemachus let them talk, and went down to his father's storeroom, a big and lofty chamber stacked with gold and bronze, with chests full of clothing and stores of fragrant oil. There too, packed close along the wall, stood jars of mellow vintage wine, full of the true unblended juice, waiting for the day when Odysseus, after all his suffering, should find his way back home again. There were locks to the closely fitting double doors, and day and night the room and its treasures were in charge of the help. Oh no, I made a mistake there. There were locks to the closely fitting double doors, and day and night the room and its treasures were in charge of the housekeeper, Eurycleia, daughter of Ops, Pythonor's son, who had all her wits about her. Calling her now to the storeroom, Telemachus said, "Listen, nurse dear, will you draw some flagons of wine for me, and let it be the choicest you have, next to the vintage you keep with such care for the unlucky king, always hoping he may escape his fate and return home? Fill 12 wagons and put their stoppers on. Pour out some barley meal in strong leather bags. 20 measures, please, of mill-crushed grain, not a word at anyone else. Get all the provisions together, and in the evening I'll fetch them myself, when my mother has gone upstairs for the night. I'm off to Sparta and sandy Pylos, on the chance of finding out something about my dear father's return. At this, Eurycleia gave a shriek and burst into tears and poured out winged words. Oh, dear child, what on earth has put this idea in your head? Why must you go wandering all over the world? You and an only son, the apple of your mother's eye, and Odysseus' favourite of Zeus, dead and gone far from his home in foreign parts. The moment your back is turned, these men will be plotting mischief against you, and when they've done you to death, they'll share all this between them. Stay here at home, where you belong. There's no call for you to go looking for trouble all over the barren seas. Have no fear, nurse dear, the prudent Telemachus replied. There's a god's hand in this. But you must swear to me that you won't tell my good mother for at least a dozen days, or till she misses me herself and finds me gone. We don't want tears to spoil her lovely cheeks. The old woman swore by all the gods that she would keep his secret, and when she had solemnly taken her oath, she drew off the wine for him in flagons, and ran the barley meal into strong bags. Telemachus rejoined the company in the hall. Bright-eyed goddess Athene now had another idea. Disguising herself as Telemachus, she went all through the town, picked out her 20 men, and passed them each the word to foregather by the good ship at nightfall. Hello there, Mentolo. How are you doing, my friend? The vessel itself she begged of Noemon, son of Phronius, a prominent Ithacan, who willingly promised to give it to her. The sun went down, and all the ways grew dark. The goddess now ran the good ship into the water, and stowed in all her gear that big ships carry. This done, she moored her in the far corner of the harbour. When the good ship's company had gathered round the goddess, the goddess had an encouraging word for each of them. The bright-eyed goddess Athene now had yet another idea. She made her way to godlike Odysseus' palace, and lulled the suitors there into a state of pleasant drowsiness, clouding their wits as they drank, and striking the wine cups from their hands. Their eyelids heavy with sleep, they lingered no more at table, but went off to the town, to their beds. Then bright-eyed Athene, assuming Mentor's form and voice once more, called Telemachus at the palace to her side. Telemachus, she said, your well-greaved companions are sitting at their oars, waiting for your word to start. Come, we do not want to delay the journey. With this, Pallas Athene led the way swiftly, and Telemachus followed in the footsteps of the goddess. When they came down to the sea, and reached the boat, they found their long-haired crew waiting on the beach, and the noble Telemachus addressed them. My friends, follow me. We must get the stores on board. They are all stacked and ready at the palace. My mother knows nothing of this, nor do the servants, except one woman whom I took into my confidence. He led off and the crew followed. They brought down all the stores, and stowed them in the well-built ship, taking their orders from Odysseus' son. Telemachus then followed Athene on board. She took her seat on the afterdeck, and he sat down beside her. The men cast the horses off, climbed in, and took their places at their oars. And now, out of the west, Athene, of the flashing eyes, called up for them a steady, following wind, and sent it singing over the wine-dark sea. Telemachus shouted to the crew to rig the ship, and they leapt to his orders. They hauled up the pine mast, placed it in a hollow box, made it fast with stays, and hoisted the white sail with plaited oxhide ropes. The sail billowed out in the wind, and the dark wave hissed loudly round her keel, and the vessel gathered way and sped on her course through the seas. When all was made fast in the swift black ship, they took out the mixing bowls, filled them to the brim with wine, and poured libations to the immortal gods who live forever, and above all to the daughter of Zeus, the lady of the gleaming eyes. And all night long, and into the dawn, the ship ploughed her way through the sea. And yeah. Oh. Where'd I go? There we are. Yeah, that was the second book of the Odyssey. We're going to... That's going to be the end of the stream then today, folks. Maybe we can just go over some brief notes then about some of the stuff in that. So, obviously there's a lot of stuff there about the idea of hubris, with the whole prophecy segment, where what his name was, it Eurymachus? Yeah, decided to give his own speech, his own prophecy, which obviously we know as an audience that it will not come true, that we know he is doomed to die. But yeah, and you can probably tell here as well, there's a lot of like repetition, and it was the nature of poems at the time. You know, wine dark sea references that what was the line here? When in this house I will destroy you and not make a restitution. A repetition of the line he said, Telemachus stated in the previous book. So yeah, it's just like I just think it's an interesting note about how it's written and how it would have been spoken and orated aloud. Because again, this is a poem, right? It's an epic poem, so it's designed to be read aloud, which is why everything's very descriptive. There's a lot of descriptions that everyone gets a clear picture of what's going on. Interesting here as well. It talks about how Penelope is owed gifts. It's supposed to rhyme too. True, yes. Obviously, translation makes for some difficulty in that, but that can happen. It can rhyme, obviously, still. But yes, we have Penelope here. I believe it was what's his name again? The guy that gave the American voice for Antonius. Yes. Antinous, even it should be Antinous. Antinous says, what's the line here? That Penelope, the matchless gifts that she owes to Athene, and that she's essentially abusing them like a god, essentially. And I just think it's an interesting point here. It matches. It's kind of like showing here really early on that like really Penelope and Odysseus are a perfect match for each other. They're both gifted by Athene. Penelope, like Athene, has her mind, her intellect. Unlike Odysseus, though, who's gifted in the art of wars, she's gifted in the art of weaving and handicrafts. As I mentioned before, that was also Athene's domain. So they're both gifted by Athene, just in different ways, but both with a strong mind. Have you heard of the reconstructed classical pronunciation of Shakespeare? I have heard of that, actually, yes. I'm pretty interested in it, honestly. I think you actually mentioned it before, Commodore, now that I think about it. But it's like reconstructed to how it would be like originally spoken by the people, right? Is that correct, or am I incorrect in that? I believe that's what it was. If I'm misremembering, do correct me. But yeah. With that being said, though, it's like 10 o'clock here and I've not had any food, so I'm gonna make myself some tea. I do hope this was enjoyable. If anyone came in to listen at all at any point, I know it's a long thing, and it's kind of difficult to come in on the middle of a reading stream. Looking at poetry, Hamlet's supposed to... Well, it's an interesting thing, actually. So a lot of these kind of things, you look at Shakespeare, right? In English he writes, a lot of his... all the language of the nobles is meant to be spoken in prose. No, it's poetry. It's poetry in prose. It's all in poetry. It's all in rhyme, or at least there's a rhythm to it. Like, you can go through a lot of works, and it'll be like iambic pentameters. Like there'll be like 10 syllables, 10 beats to each line, and even if it doesn't rhyme, it's all in this like poetic style. But if you just go to like someone of a lower class, it will not be. Obviously, this can also happen in comedy as well. There'll be in some of Shakespeare's comedies, there'll be characters who should be of a higher standing, but they're more of a comedic character, and so they'll speak in a manner lower than themselves, and it's all but kind of leaning into the joke of it, where like this person is of a high standing, they're like a lord, but they don't act like it, and that's meant to even add to it further. Comedy of errors. I'm thinking of when I said that, I was specifically thinking of something like Twelfth Night, where you have the uncle. I can't remember his name now, but he's like a very wealthy man, but he's always hangs out with the servants and everything like that, getting drunk, and yeah, it's very amusing. But yeah, I hope that was enjoyable. I would like to carry on with this, so I guess in the future we'll be carrying on from book 3. Yeah. And there's the first. There's actually a really good bit from so the Globe Theatre in London still does all male productions of Shakespeare, and you can see a lot of them on their website. On the Globe Theatre production for Twelfth Night, it's really funny because the actor for the uncle, he's constantly drinking. Everyone's always taking his wine off. Like, dude, you're a drunk. Stop it. He's got like hidden wine casks everywhere on stage, and he'll like lift up a plant pot and take out wine from it. It's very funny. There's a lot of like physical humor which doesn't come across in the written text, obviously, because it wasn't designed to be fully written like that. Oftentimes there's kind of play scripts where you'd get the part which was written for you and maybe the line coming into it, because it would often mean having to handwrite like several dozen scripts, which wasn't feasible. So there'd probably be some kind of master script, which is where we get the quartos from, and yeah, we get the master script, and each individual section will be copied down for the ones which are needed. Yeah. Anyway, so I think we'll probably try and do this next Friday as well, because I very much enjoyed doing this. This is a nice trip down memory lane. But yeah. And I'll go and listen to the rest of Epic as well. Anyway, I hope you had a good evening, everyone. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. Keep well, stay safe, eat lots of good food. I'll see you next time. Okay, bye-bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.